Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts. Yay! Okay, this is so fun to be back with you, Hannah, and to get to meet Brandon for the first time on the podcast. Welcome, you guys.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. We're excited.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to be here with Brandon and Hannah Schulte. And it's funny to say that because you guys just recently got married. So I'm excited to hear about that journey a little bit today. But you, Hannah, were guest back on episode 59, which was like December 2021. I had to look it up because I couldn't quite remember when it was. It's all been a bit of a blur the last few years. Yes. But that was so fun just to hear more about your backstory. I encourage people to go back and listen to hear about your journey and dance and kind of the beginnings of what you're doing now as well, which is exciting. So yeah, but I would love to let you guys have a moment to introduce yourselves, kind of high level. You both have Schulte Productions that you're working together on now, and we'll get to talk about that.
Yep.
Doing both audio and visual media and getting to do some videography, photography, and audio engineering, which is so cool. I can't wait to hear about that. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you guys and let you maybe just share a little bit about yourself, maybe a fun fact or two about you, and then we'll get into more of what you're up to now.
Yeah. So I'm Hannah Schulte. I was Hannah Ueckert, episode 59, and got married in December to this guy here and moved to Tennessee. So originally from Texas, and most of my life was in Texas. And then the Lord does crazy things. And now I'm in Tennessee, living in a very, very small town, which is about an hour south of Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're just living life and switching gears. Dance is still a part of my life, but definitely switching into other exciting things, and excited to dive more into that later. As for a fun fact, it's funny, I was helping Brandon come up with his fun fact, and I didn't even think to come up with a fun fact.
It's always harder for yourself, I feel like.
It is.
Do you have a fun fact, Brandon, about Hannah?
Well, I didn't realize how much of a sports nerd she was back in the day.
Yes.
Way more than I am.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I do love baseball. I love it all. And it caught him off guard when I was watching the World Series, and I was like, I was super dramatic about it or whatever. And he was like, I didn't even realize you like this. And it just was it was a really, really big, like, who are you moment.
Yes. Who is this person? Yeah, I get that.
You're supposed to be a dancer and like a little techie, artsy. And then here I am like, just hit the ball, get to third. Like,
yeah, it's true. It really is true. It makes a lot of sense though when once I met your dad, but
yes,
yeah.
I just didn't realize that you had that was part of your personality. I think she had mentioned it maybe one time when we first started dating, but when we kind of speed run the dating course and get into that, but it was something that I just totally had no idea about, which is just, it's funny because that was just something my family didn't do. Like we're a bunch
at all.
Yeah.
No sports.
Yeah. My dad,
gotcha.
But like mainly like I didn't go to a game with him until I was I was in college. So I think I went to one game with him when I was really young. Yeah.
But not like my family where it's like when football season or baseball, we are the Astros, man. There's a deep, deep place in our heart for them.
Yes, Go Stros, for sure.
Yes.
That's awesome. It's fun to learn about each other over time too and discover more and like, oh wow, that's really cool. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Keep learning. Yes. How about you, Brandon? You wanted to share a little bit about yourself, what you're up to now, and a fun fact on your end.
Well, I'm originally from Michigan, so I think it's still considered the Midwest. I always question that now that I've actually seen more of the United States, but yep, born and raised, and spent a lot of my life up in northern Michigan, worked on a farm, then ended up going to college and moved to Nashville back in 21, and then I've been here for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in June. Been in Tennessee.
Oh, cool.
And love it. I don't want to go back. I love Tennessee.
Yeah.
But fun fact about me, because I was raised on the farm, I used to work with my neighbors and in a very small northern Michigan town. Every once in a while, you got asked to go help dig graves, and I had to dig the grave of my grandmother on the day of her funeral.
Oh my goodness. That is that's an epically like intense fact for sure.
Yes, it
Fun
is.
fact.
It is. But it was funny because what happened was this small town, I used to work with our neighbors here. They were in charge of like a lot of doing all the contracting for that. And someone like forgot to actually call them and tell them to go do it. So I got a call 8:30 on it was like a Tuesday morning, and the funeral was at 1. And he's like, get your clothes on and grab a shovel and meet me over at the graveyard. Oh, we got to take the grave.
Now I have to ask, was this somewhat healing for you to dig on the day of the funeral? Not necessarily.
It was just one of those things that I had done it. When you grow up on a farm, it's just a whole different view of life and even just how you process death. And honestly, my grandmother was really old. It was on my mom's side. So I only have one living grandparent. It's the one, my grandmother on my dad's side.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandmother on my mom's side, she was kind of holding on for dear life for a long time. So we kind of knew it was going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
And it was just ironic, but also just, I was like, yep, of course, it's going to be today. So I went, helped him dig it. And then I went home, showered, changed, and got to the funeral home.
Wow. Yeah. You got to do what you got to do. Sometimes it's like, that's how it goes.
Yep, so.
Well, I am so excited for you guys. And first of all, congratulations on your recent marriage. This is so exciting.
Thank you.
It's just fun to see how much has changed since we last talked and how many new exciting things are happening. Y'all are now obviously in Tennessee, have moved. So I'm super curious just to hear whatever you want to share of your story, like all the things, maybe the overview at least of kind of how you met and then how you ended up together in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Well, you should start because you're the one who kind of got the lead on it first.
I did, yeah. So I actually was filming weddings, and a friend of mine asked for me to film her wedding up in Michigan. I was like, absolutely, would love to. I get to travel. I haven't been to Michigan. This is going to be so fun. And then like her and I have always been like, well, do you know any like single guys and stuff? And, and so I asked her, I was like, do you know if there's going to be any like epic singles at this wedding? And she was like, well, there's going to be this one guy. He's the best man. And he's also going to DJ the wedding as well. And so I think you'd like him. I mean, you should meet him. And so that was in like February when her and I had that discussion, and the wedding was in August.
Okay.
So fast forward, I'm getting ready for the wedding, and I'm driving up to Michigan and all this stuff. And all I know is that his name's Brandon. Like that's all I know is this guy's name is Brandon. He's the best man. I should meet him. And so I drive all the way up to Michigan. Actually, fun fact, I stayed here in Tennessee, like 15 minutes from where I live now with a friend as my halfway point.
That's so cool.
And there was a part of me when I drove through this area, I was like, if I was going to live anywhere but Texas, I want to live in this area. How fun would it be to meet a guy who has a cute little home in this area? And that was just like me thinking and driving and like wondering and all that stuff. And so
just the thought that floats through.
Don't really pay much attention to it because it's a big shot. And so I get up to Michigan and get to the wedding, and then this guy walks in, and I fell in love at first sight. Knew I was going to marry him. Like when I saw him, very, very confident deep in my gut, this was going to be my husband. But you can take from there.
Really sweet.
Well, I had just gotten out of an encounter with someone who was a little bit on the crazy side, and I was a little skeptical, I was like, I don't want to get set up again with someone who's crazy. And so I kind of approached the whole thing very cautious and a little bit more guarded. And so it really took Hannah she made the first move, really.
I did.
Actually, the first couple, in a way.
Took a few.
She was the first one to ask for my Instagram, and then also was the one to actually ask if we wanted to keep talking after she left Michigan.
Nice.
So
I used it though. I was like, hey, we exchanged then it was Light Ray Films was my video. And so I was like, we should just exchange Instagram. So if we want to do like a project together one day with your audio and my video.
That was smart. Yes.
Thank you. Yes. I can be smooth sometimes, once in a blue moon. It worked. So the Lord showed grace there.
It's just a good thing you didn't try to flirt.
Yeah, no, flirting, and I did not. If it would have, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's rough.
Yeah. So then you guys kept in touch. Sounds like post wedding.
Yeah. So this was August.
It was August 4th when we met, and then she went back to Texas. I went back to Tennessee, and then I had a show that I was going to go mix for on, I think it was the 17th or 18th. And we had talked on the phone a few times and basically decided to have like our first official date, which would have been long distance. And so we did it over Discord. So that way we could actually like share our screens and like, watch a movie or just hang out. And so I got back. The show was on a Thursday, flew back Friday morning. I can't remember if I worked that day or not, but then I got home and we started our date around 6 or 7 o'clock.
Like 1 week after we met.
This is 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was 15 days after we met. And when we did that, by the end of the day, we decided to become official and start dating each other. Like officially.
Well, our phone call, like our Discord date lasted like
till about 1 a.m.
Oh wow. Yeah.
6 or 7 hours.
You're like, you just want to keep talking and hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we both talked on the phone and both of our hearts and our attitudes were, we've been single long enough that we're not in it to date. We want to figure out really if this is something that we want to keep going with or figure out why it's not going to work. And that way we can avoid as much heartache, and it just makes it's just so much less messy when you just have kind of very clear-cut expectations of what you're looking for. And we both wanted that. And so it was, well, if we're going to talk, like, why are we talking if we're not dating? And then once we got through that, we started to realize that we were on the same page and we had the same values. That's when things kept going and moving forward.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so we became official 2 weeks after we met.
Yep.
And then by the end of August, I think it was like August 30th, you told me I could pick out start looking for a ring. Like we had already had all these conversations and knew like he was going to propose to me. And so middle of September, he flew down to Texas.
It was like the third week.
Yeah, third week
of September.
Okay. Yeah, somewhere in the 24th area.
Yeah.
But he flew down to Texas. So this is the second time we've met in person.
Yep.
In Michigan, we did not touch. I did not hug this guy, or we held hands while we prayed because there was like a group of us that prayed together in a circle. Nice. So I never hugged this guy or anything at all. And he comes down to Texas. I pick him up at the airport and he proposes to me that weekend with the blessing of my family. And we were around a campfire, and the friends who set us up were there as well. So it was like a really sweet, just little engagement, everything. And then that was a great weekend.
Yeah. So then we didn't see each other in person until the end of October. And then basically once we figured out that December was going to be the earliest that we would be able to get married and for her to move up. So it was pretty much, we only saw each other once again after that in person before we got married.
Yeah. Then in August, got engaged in September. I came to Tennessee in October.
Yep.
And then we got married
in December.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, quite the ride for sure. Just
for sure.
And then 4 weeks later, I leave on a 3-month tour and was only home 1 to 2 days a week for 3 months.
3 months. But
that's so cool. And I think there is a difference in clarity, when you're kind of at that point where you're just like you said, Brandon, we want to know, is this something we want to pursue or not? And then once you know, then you can just kind of move forward freely, which is really cool. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just being where we're both at, like I had just bought this house a couple months before we met, and she had just gotten, done traveling and kind of investing in library. Well, neither of us were like, we don't want to spend a lot of money on a wedding. We don't have the money for a wedding, and our parents don't have the money for a wedding. So it was something of the nature of either we have to wait a long time to do it, when in the reality is that we're both, I'm 29 and she's 27. We're at that point now where we want to get on and keep moving forward in our life. And
Build together.
it didn't make sense for us to wait and have like a big wedding, especially when our parents were all like, both sides of our family were totally willing to just be like, yeah, you guys just go get married.
So what we didn't mention was that we actually got married in our kitchen here.
Yeah.
And so we got married in our kitchen here and had our neighbors across the street as our witnesses. And a friend of ours who lives in town, like 2 blocks down, married us, a friend of his who's a pastor here.
Wow.
And so it was 6 of us in December with some Christmas music in our kitchen, living our best life. Just very small and very like, our whole goal was to like, we want to build our life together and build dreams together and stuff. So if we're on the same page and we have the same heart and the same values, then let's go ahead and just run together and do life together. And so that was a part of it all.
Well, thanks for sharing. That's really a fun story.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like I need the story here. This is great.
It's a good one.
Yeah. We know at least if they've heard your episode, Hannah, a bit more of your backstory and background with dance. So we'll get back to that in a minute and kind of how you transitioned over. But I'd love to hear, Brandon, more about your backstory and kind of maybe overview of how you got into this line of work, being an audio engineer, and maybe like what's one of your favorite parts about what you get to do.
Well, that's definitely a loaded question. I've been a musician for a long time. My mom was a vocal major in college. My family, especially on my mom's side, is very musical. And I always grew up loving music, and I played guitar since I was, early teenager, did voice lessons with my mom, took piano lessons in college. But I've always been I've always loved tech. I've always loved working on tinkering, especially on my dad's side. We're all a bunch of tinkerers and, very mechanically inclined. So the production world is a kind of a perfect mesh of that creative and the technical. And especially for me, I always was that kid at church that was bothering everybody up in the production booth, just trying to like get my way in there. And there was a long time where I wasn't in church and just where our family was moving around a lot, trying to start a farm. But then once I started going after high school, I started at a small college up in northern Michigan. I was doing my associate's degree, and I started playing at a church there. And one of my friends was working with their audio guy, who was found out was actually they were contracting him, and he owned his own sound company.
Oh, cool.
So I just told my buddy, I was like, hey, could I just come along for one of your shows and just help out? And so I went and just, helped load in, set up. They did the show. We loaded out, took everything back, and then just kind of started from there. Did a couple of shows that summer with them. And then the following summer, before I left for college to finish my bachelor's, I did probably between a dozen and 20 shows just across northern Michigan. And all I was doing was just loading in gear, loading out gear, wrapping cables, patching a stage. And I loved it. Like, we did some really cool small town cover bands up to, bigger country acts like Brothers Osborne, when we did just a bunch of different private events that we had some pretty big names come in.
Cool.
So I just got kind of to see that world and fell in love with it. And then when I went off to college, I was trying to find a way. I really wanted to do that full time, but for better or worse, everyone I talked to was like, yeah, you really can't make a living doing this, but it can be a good hobby. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I was like, well, I guess if I can't do that, I'll at least keep trying to pursue and learn. So I went to college, got my bachelor's in computer science. So became a software engineer, But while I was at college, I started volunteering with my church and volunteering with a couple local groups. And before the end of my term at college, I ended up as a contract engineer at one of the churches. And then within a year, I was on staff at that church.
Cool.
And so
Okay.
graduated college, and I was 3 interviews into a position for a network engineering company out in Seattle. And I just sent them an email and said, I don't want to continue with this interview process. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And then went and took a part-time job at a church.
Wow.
Took that part-time job at the church and started January 2nd of 2020. So
Yeah, right before the pandemic.
yeah. So we were launching a campus and then basically got everything up and running. And then 2 months later, they shut down that campus and a couple other ones because of COVID.
Wow.
And so I was, trying to figure out what I was doing. And then basically within a year of that, I knew that it was time for me to leave and I wanted to do more. I always wanted to grow. And I was working with other churches in the area. I was contracting for different places. And basically, once I had a couple of conversations with some friends, I knew it was time for me to go check out Nashville, because that's really, if you want to get anywhere in this industry, your best bet is just to move. And, it's Nashville is a town of just time and people. Once you get here, it's really with Nashville, it's not so much about what you know, it's about who you know and how you are to work with. Because if you can get to Nashville and do any work at all, you are good and you are good enough at your job. But then at that point, it is, do people want to work with you? And so that was the next step, was just coming here, learning to meet people. But I left because I knew it was the right thing to do. I had friends just tell me, like, you need to do this. And I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live, but I was like, I know that this is the right decision. I know this is where the Lord wants me to go. So I quit my job. And I was working 2 part-time jobs in Michigan, quit them both, broke the lease on my apartment. And the U-Haul was packed up. And the day that I left was the day that I got a job offer to work for a small AV company in just south of Nashville.
Wow.
And it was also the day that I was able to sign a lease on an apartment. So
wow, like all happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I was prepared to leave and move without having a place to go or a job, because I knew it was the right thing to do, was to get out. So I came down, and then within a couple of months, I started contracting at some churches in town. And then I met, through a small group at church, I met the keys player to the current artist that I'm working with. And within a couple of months later, I literally had one conversation. And then 4 months later, I get a DM on Instagram asking if I want to come out and mix for a youth conference that they're doing. And then a couple months later, I started doing shows, started touring. I was like 20 or 25 states last summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Lots of touring.
Yes.
Yep. Got A-list on Southwest in 3 months.
Yeah. That's incredible. Love it. Yeah. Do you have a favorite memory of your time so far?
There's been some really cool key moments. I just remember the first time I was mixing at church, that I just was in the middle of a song and I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I mean, and that was like 4 years ago. But there's been some just really cool moments throughout, like even the recent times, of just getting to see the interactions working with people. And the cool moments are always like when everything kind of comes together. And most of the time that something always goes wrong, because that's just the world that we live and work in. But it really is about the people that you work with. And the art is important, but it's definitely secondary. If you're not working with good people, then it doesn't matter how good the artist is or how good the performance is. It just sours the whole thing. But working with really great people can make a bad situation still really good.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I didn't really think would be the case, but it's definitely been the case with just about everywhere I've worked. Probably one of the coolest little things I did, though, was I was helping out just some friends they started a small festival in town, and there's a school out of Franklin that teaches kids. It's kind of like a trade school for musicians and audio engineers and production people.
Cool.
So they put on this whole festival, and I was just there to kind of make sure everything went together. And I really ended up just spending the entire day just pouring into these kids. And when I say kids, I mean, they were anywhere from 18 to, 21, 22 years old,
Right.
but
College kids. Yeah.
yeah,
College kids.
they're still kids. So
that's so fun. Are you allowed to talk about like which artists you've worked with?
yeah, well, I currently work for an artist named Austin French. I've done some work for a bunch of the churches in town, some of the bigger ones like Church of the City,
The Belonging.
Co. I've worked, well, I've served with them, and
Yeah.
there's a couple other churches that I've started working with. I've done shows for Micah Tyler. We were just on Winter Jam, so I was working with all the artists on, like, working with all the Blue Crew on Winter Jam.
Cool.
So yeah,
that's so fun. I love it. I definitely recognize the names. I'm like, yes, so cool.
Yeah.
I love their music. We'll kind of shift gears a little bit to Hannah and your journey since we talked last, basically. So I know you started Light Ray Films, which was focusing in on videography, and it's cool that you were kind of already in that. Obviously you were, because you were filming a wedding whenever you guys met, but that you were already in kind of that almost more tech space in a way, production space. Mm-hmm. But do you want to just share a little bit about that journey since you were last on the podcast and how that's kind of impacted what you're doing now?
Absolutely. I think I started like really diving more into the video world and stuff, even when I was working with Mako and, I was the operations manager for Mako Dance and would be filming their stuff and like helping more on the tech and production side of that. And so that kind of just really started this whole, like, I love dancing and I love movement, but I also really, really, really love making sure that it happens for other people.
Yeah.
And then capturing it, like remembering it and seeing that. And so I think just in that season of being an operations manager, dreaming about Light Ray Films, launching Light Ray Films, and filming a couple weddings, I have really loved, and I use this phrase, like capturing the meaningful moments of movement
I love that.
in people's lives and like documenting them, and just kind of have a response. I carry a responsibility of wanting to capture those moments for people, and whether that's, for dancers or other people. I'm trying to think of any other events I did, mainly just dance.
Mm-hmm.
But since getting married and stuff, and I do love weddings. I also worked as an assistant coordinator for some weddings, and there is truly just something special about capturing that first I do moment for people, and that day of commitment, that day of standing before your loved ones. And I want to take what I have in the heart of capturing the meaningful moments and translate that into, filming actual weddings and stuff. And so it's been a wild thought ride and dream ride, going from being a dancer, like how most of you guys know me, and to now being a wife and a videographer. I still teach here and there, and like just got back from Knoxville adjudicating an audition. And there's actually a very tiny dance studio 2 blocks up from my house that I teach hip hop at. And it's very fun. I'm trying to get Brandon to come take it, but I don't know if that will happen. And he'd go line dancing.
Yeah.
He'll go line dancing with me.
That's good. That's the main thing, honestly.
Don't know if I can get him to do any contemporary. We'll see. Yeah. But
you'll probably have to pick me up off the floor.
I would. Yeah.
The best though is dancing in the kitchen or like in the living room,
We do dance in our kitchen. It's very, very sweet and funny. It's either or. There's no in between.
Love it.
But just transitioning from being a dancer to then like stepping out on the sidelines and having this heart of capturing this movement. And it's been beautiful to get to that point of witnessing and like seeing the fruit of movement, whether that's professional dance company or it's a wedding. And like, I remember the few of the weddings I filmed last year, like the grandmas tearing it up on the dance floor is so worth documenting and needs to be documented more. Like, I am here we always call my one grandma a Vegas grandma, and I am here to capture the Vegas grandmas of the world as they tear it up on the dance floor.
Love it.
It's so worth it.
So true. Those are some really special moments. It's nice to have that captured and, like you said, something that people can look back at and remember. So I'm curious for both of you guys and whoever wants to jump in first, but what does it look like for you guys to utilize your gifts, these various gifts, in like serving the Lord and just making an impact for the kingdom?
Well, I mean, it's sometimes a struggle for me to go to church on a Sunday because a lot of times it's just the quality can be a little bit difficult to manage. But I do really believe in that everything we do should be done with excellence. And that just like, if you audition for a worship team or you go to sing a song, that you practice and you do the work on the front end. So that way, it's an excellent gift. It's a sweet gift. And perfection is unattainable, but the idea of excellence is really just doing the best with what you have, whatever that is. Sometimes it's not always the best looking, but excellence is really a measure of your heart and what you put into something. So I love helping churches. I love helping worship leaders. I love doing that on the church side of being able to help make, just what I did for years, help make your service the best. And that's what I've done for a long time. That's why I've been a contract engineer. That's what I was doing when I was on staff at a church. And even now I have churches asking me to come in and help them, train their people or help raise the standard of what they're trying to attain. So that's one way. But I genuinely believe that art is something that the Lord loves, and it doesn't have to necessarily have a Christian label on it to still be good art.
Right.
And we can work with excellence in whatever we do. And then our ministry can happen wherever we're at. It can happen with the people that we're interacting with every day. And so no matter what we do, we want to do things with excellence and do things well and also have the right, heart posture. So I even when I'm not working with in a Christian space, or if I'm working with a secular artist, I can still minister where I'm at. And I still believe that the Lord honors excellence no matter what we do.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Well said. Yeah, because especially I would imagine in sort of the production side of things, it really makes a difference, like you said, how people feel when they're working with you, how they experience your work can totally transform a space or a project and things like that, or a concert. And like you said, when you got to Tennessee and Nashville and kind of realizing, wow, it's really, do people even want to work with me? And a lot of that, I think, has to do with that heart posture, like you're talking about, and serving others. And that's so cool. Anyway, I'm just like, yes, love it. Exclamation point.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Hannah?
Yeah. I think the excellence, we've both always that's been something we've talked about even in dating, and, we want to just pursue excellence in the Lord, excellence in our relationship. How can we be the best at what we're doing for the Lord? And so especially going in ministry with the wedding videography and just videography in general, one of my hearts, especially in the wedding industry, is to bring peace to the day. And I know that most vendors and everything, we want your day to go smooth. We want your day to go peaceful. That is the ultimate goal. And yes, technically and logically and on paper, things can go peaceful. But I want to bring a light into this area and carry the Lord's peace with me, because that's a different kind of peace that can be in this space versus the whole checklist type of peace. And so that's definitely one of my hearts for the wedding industry, is just I know that I can come into a room with the Lord and be a light in that situation and bring the Lord's peace with me, and may the Lord's peace go before me on a day that can be either the most beautiful, blissful day of someone's life or the most stressful day of someone's life. And believe it or not, I just want that to be the case in every situation when it comes to videography. Is we're kind of supposed to be invisible as videographers. We're not really supposed to be seen. We're supposed to sneak in, get the epic candid shots, sneak out type of thing. And my prayer is that I leave a trail of light and peace as I go into these situations. And if that leads to getting to talk and minister to people and pray for people, obviously, yes. But the Lord can do so much with just a trail of peace and light.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just been my heart for the weddings, is to be able to go in and offer something that isn't very common and just be more of a peaceful, safe place while capturing the meaningful movement of their life.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, it's interesting. People may not even realize why it feels different, but they can sense like something different here, and something's different with her or with him. I think that's really powerful. And that's a really good segue, actually, because I know a lot of your heart behind Schulte Productions is to bring that light and to serve those that you get to work with. And so I'd love to hear about this new venture that you guys are doing, starting a business together, and kind of your heart behind that. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think really kind of how we wanted to start it was a way to start to bring what we both do under one umbrella. And we're still figuring out exactly how that works in the day to day, because a lot of like for videography, you tend to build a business. You're going to build yourself off of a business, not as much of a name. Like normally when people are looking for a videographer, they're going to go look, they're going to find a company or just a group or something. Like it's a little bit more like kind of needing a storefront. But in the world that the audio production, kind of the Nashville world for music, it's a lot about, hey, I know this guy and he's really good. So I think right now what we're trying to do is really work on launching the video side of it. And so I'm more still working as building myself, but trying to keep everything under the umbrella of Schulte Productions, because our heart and our goal is to work together on everything that we do. And it just takes a little while because they are two very different worlds, but they have a lot of intersectionality. So you have things like, for her with weddings, there's always a need for, either a DJ or someone to have a system to bring in. And for her, like being able to work with wedding vendors and people and venues, like just being able to be like, hey, like we also offer this, and having that as a part of the umbrella instead of trying to hire two different people to do one job. And then for me, I think ultimately we want to have it so that I can offer myself, but also long-term want to be able to start offering our services in a way that people can buy a package that includes us. And that could be, we put on an entire production, or we bring the equipment for this. And so it's really trying to realize that our end goal is to work together as much as we can. And sometimes that just means that I'm helping her, rent gear for her wedding. And sometimes that's for her, that's just her making sure that I have all my ducks in a row for the show. But ultimately, Schulte Productions is the heart of both of us to work together, because our goal is to have the freedom, both in time and money, to be able to work together and then be together instead of having it be two separate ventures. And because that's what we've done for so long, it's taking some time to figure out how those two worlds mesh together. But our heart with this is to make sure that our focus is always that we work together.
Yeah.
And we do that. And we not only are married, but we love working together.
Yeah, we really do. Like that was one thing, like at the wedding where we met, there was a few moments where we were even both like, wow, we actually work really well together. And like, situations where I am filming something and I like, hey, my husband is an audio engineer. Let's have him come in and he can, let's say I'm filming, mainly the wedding, like a live band is there and there's somebody not able to mix or like whatever. He could come into that. And then it's the same, like on the flip side, if he's out on tour and like a social media content capture, like if there's no one there to capture the artists while they're performing, then he can be like, hey, there's also, my wife is available to do this. And we just want to be able to bounce back and forth between the two worlds and find a way to mesh the two together in an excellent way.
And on the surface, it doesn't always look like it can be, but it's actually turned out to be not near as difficult, I think, as we thought.
Yeah.
And even though like I'm an audio guy and she's a video girl, like that's not a constraining factor. It's very complementary. And even like I said, even if it's just I'm helping her edit a video or helping her rent the right gear or making sure that she has a flight to the wedding she's going to do, it doesn't mean that we don't get to work together. But the whole heart of Schulte Productions is to market ourselves as the both of us, because we really are, as a married couple, we do everything together. And even in a situation where we're utilizing one of our skill sets more than the other, it really has been beautiful just to see that it still is better when we're working together.
Yeah.
The end result is always better.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. Yeah, that team synergy is really helpful, and having someone that's kind of in your corner is also really nice. If it's one or the other that's more kind of taking the lead at that moment. But yeah, as far as the actual just building your own business side of things, any particular challenges that have come up along the way?
Yes and no. Not really. I mean, I guess that's another aspect of like his skill set versus my skill set. Like it would be challenging if I was having to figure out how to build a website without a computer science major with me. Like
so true.
I'm married to a software engineer as well. Like, so that aspects of like the more like website and all the checks and balances and,
well, and she is also far more type A than I am.
Yes. So I'm very type A and he is very not type A. That's the best way to we complement each other so well. We actually do. But definitely it would be way harder if we weren't able to complement each other's abilities and be able to follow up. And like he is able to do more of the math, 1 + 1 = 2. Let's make sure this works. Check all that, and then I can come behind and be like, okay, now let's add some blues and golds and some glitter and make this look a little prettier.
Love that.
Between the two of us, it has been easier than what we even thought at the beginning, especially if we have time to like sit down and actually be together. We did start launching it while he was on tour, and he was like on a bus, and that was difficult. But we still did it just because there's still that grace and that like the trust of like, how about you handle this, I'll handle this, let's catch up again.
Well, and I think what we're trying to figure out now, and I think maybe the more difficult part, is how are we marketing ourselves, and then also what are the things that we need to be doing, and honestly, like what are the new things that we should be trying, because whether it's creating content or just like new strategies, just new ideas that we can start to market. And then also just like, what are things that you and I are actually good at that we've never tried before? Because we've just, I love the idea of being a jack of all trades, but I truly desire to just at least master one thing in my life and be the person that someone like always is like, hey, this guy is the best, call him. And that's what I want to be for in my work. And then I can venture out into other things, but how do you maximize that? And I think those are some more of like the brainstorming, just things that we really haven't had the chance to sit down and figure out how to flesh out this idea into like a more complete picture of what it's ultimately going to be like. And then also just how does it evolve and change over time? Because I think because of who we are, what Schulte Productions, what it is today, will not be what it is in 2 years or even in 6 months, because we're constantly trying to become the better version of ourselves and also do the work that we're the best at. And I think that changes with the different seasons of your life. And we're both kind of finding that, like for you, you were dancing for so many years, and now this is what you want to move into full time. And for me, I was on staff at a church for years, and then I moved into the full-time, freelance work. And, now I'm getting settled in working with an artist, and I want to start branching out into other areas of the industry. So there's so many ways that it'll start to look different as we grow together and as we grow as artists ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is there something that you're most looking forward to as you kind of look to the future at this point?
I think for us, we both want to get to a place where we value our time, and like we're into that place now where we have people that are calling us and asking for us to do things. So we are really want to lean into having the time freedom, but still having the ability to work the really good gigs, have basically pick the work that we want to do. And so that way we have that freedom to say no when we need to.
Yeah.
Because my whole life I've worked a 9 to 5, or I've worked for other people, and it's just been like I didn't take a vacation until basically we
Our
got
honeymoon.
married. From the time I was out of high school till the time we got married, I didn't really have a vacation because I was just always working.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be the case when we start to have kids, like, and just even now, like,
Yeah.
to be able to just say no and have the freedom to do that is, I think, just something that a lot of the world has lost. It's become so difficult to attain, and people don't have the vision for it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
To just be able to say no when you need to.
And like our heart too is we want to just be very hands-on in the sense of like we want to be together and like build a home together and eventually dream up other things together. And when we do have kids and a family one day, like we want to be a very hands-on family and a very like experiences type of family. And so having the freedom, the financial freedom and the schedule, the time freedom, that's one of our big dreams with doing this, is like put in this work on the front end. So that way, when we have kids one day, that we can be the family that just ups and goes to Yellowstone, for the week, and bring our computers and do it, a few little things, and then be galloping. I don't know, something for fun.
Well, and both of us, like, we both love travel. I love traveling in the sense of touring. I love doing that, but in no way do I want to be gone for 3/4 of the year and not be home. So I think what I hope to get to sooner than later is the place where I get to pick a handful of really good gigs in a year, and then go do those and go mix for those shows and come home and then just be home. And it's already starting to happen. And that's what's really cool. I think when I moved to Nashville, I was told that Nashville is a 5-year town. It takes 5 years for you to kind of get to that place. But I really do believe that if you're doing what the Lord says, the timeline doesn't really matter. And some days it looks a lot slower than others. And then sometimes you just wake up and you're like, how in the world did I get that phone call? And I think that that's just when you learn. And I didn't do this for the first many years of my life. I was so scared to like take risks because I was always afraid of either failure or not having enough money, or just like that I wasn't good enough, a lot of imposter syndrome. And when you get past that and you're able to honestly just say, Lord, I'll do whatever you want, then people start to look, it'd be like, how in the world are you there? And it's like, I didn't do this. I just started saying yes when I needed to say yes. I think that's true with our marriage. That's true with the work that we're both doing. And I think we both just want to lean into that because we believe that there is a ministry for us that's out there and then also at home. And in order to be the most efficient and successful in doing ministry, you have to have freedom to do it. And for us, that really is what we're leaning into, is doing the work so that we can have the freedom to be where we're supposed to be.
So good. Yeah. Well, that's already, I feel like, a word of advice / encouragement for artists. But as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with other artists right now, kind of in this season?
I feel like it's just kind of backing up the timing thing is like one thing I think you and I talked about last time I was with you, Rachel, was just the ability to rest and like sit and dream. And now it's almost like my heart for that. Yes, rest, dream and stuff. But there's also like when the Lord says yes, don't be afraid to just like go. And sometimes it's just like a walk, and then sometimes it's just like, I think there's that meme or like that reel where the guy's like, take my hand. We're not going yet. Not yet. Okay, let's go. And they're like running, the one guy just looks completely berserk. I feel like that. Like there's such a fun journey with the Lord when he does say, let's go. It's like, if you just like run with him, he'll give you the stamina. He'll give you what you need.
Yeah.
don't be afraid of that. And I think that is just a testament of like how we met and how fast it was from the day we literally said, hi, my name's Hannah. Hi, I'm Brandon, to the day it was like, do you, Brandon Schulte, take Hannah? Like, just that sprint. And I think ultimately I just want to encourage artists, like, when the yes is there and it's time to go, like, go. And it's so worth it. And like the Lord's timing in that is worth it. And yes, there's seasons of rest and there's seasons of dreaming and there's seasons of soaking, but then there's also seasons of sweating and running with the Lord. And that is super fun and not as tiring as it feels or sounds. It's actually life-giving and invigorating.
Yeah. I will say this, that there are times when the sweating is just that, and it's hard. But I think it's always like, just with my life and what I've seen is that don't be afraid to rest, but then also when it is time to work, like sometimes it takes more than you think you have. And that's okay, because that's also learning how to rest in the Lord is like, I can't do this right now. Nope, you can't, but the Lord can, and you will, because it is a true testament of our weakness sometimes and how the Lord uses that when we push forward, when we don't feel like we have the strength to push forward. And it's a beautiful thing when you get to the other side of that and you're like, how in the heck did I get here? And it's like, well, you
did it. The Lord did.
Yeah. But I think too, just when it comes to being in the creative space, get around people who have the same heart that you do. That's the big thing. Find that community, work with those people. And don't be afraid to find that person that's doing what you love and start asking them questions and become friends with them. Because the thing I've loved about this industry that we work in is that it's not as competitive as you think. It's actually a lot more collaborative, and people want to work with people because once you get past the point of like, oh, I'm good at, like, I'm decent at this, I'm good at this, that's when it becomes really beautiful, because everyone has, like, even if you have two people that do the exact same thing and are both amazingly gifted at it and are masters of their craft, they both have two very different things to bring to the table, even within that. And it really is beautiful, because that's when, like, it's not competitive anymore. It's like, we're both doing this, but we both have something to offer. And you can really, you lean into that. You can just really grow off of others when you learn that it's not a competition. That everyone can bring something to the table. So just don't, being cutthroat, it always ends poorly.
So good. Yes, I 100% agree. That's just well said, and a good way to kind of wrap up that conversation. And it ties so well into just your journey as well, and how you've seen God be faithful when you step forward and see, like, there's room for all of us at the table kind of deal. So well, as we finish up today, just for fun, I'd love to hear, what is one of your favorite things right now? So do you want to start us off, Brandon?
For me right now, honestly, it's probably when I'm home, and I don't know, this is a blessing for Hannah too, hopefully most of the time, but I love, like, pulling out the Traeger and smoking meat. I just smoked a bunch of pork loins yesterday, and skit, ribs, whatever. So when I'm home, that thing's out. I'm making something.
And that's, I'm sure, a blessing, because there's probably delicious meals that come out of this.
So good. I love when he's home and he's like, I'm going to go smoke some meat. And I'm like, yes. My favorite thing for my birthday this year, I don't know if anyone on this podcast has heard of Ballerina Farm. She's just super cool. Worth checking out on Instagram. But I had been wanting something from her kitchen store, like anything, an apron or whatever. And for my birthday this year, I got the wooden kitchen utensils. And it just makes cooking so much more elegant and way more fun. And that's probably one of my favorite things, is cooking with my Ballerina Farm kitchen utensils. They're so fun.
I love it.
I probably should have said Brandon's my favorite thing, because Brandon is my favorite thing.
And you are my favorite.
Yes, but I also love utensils.
All good. It's all good. Yes. Well, I would love to let people know how they can connect with you guys, and especially with Schulte Productions, and like if they're interested in working with you, how they can do that.
Yeah. So we have Instagram. We'll get those links to you.
Awesome.
But we have like Instagram, Schulte Productions. You can connect with us personally on Instagram, Brandon Schulte or Hannah Schulte.
Yeah. Well, for mine is Brandon.Schulte, and then yours is
A Tray of Light. Yeah.
And we're all three accounts are very active.
We have a website.
Yep. We have a website, Schulte.pro. And then
we're also seen
on the Knot and the Wedding Wire.
Yeah. We're actually like as seen on the Knot and Wedding Wire. So if you are like planning a wedding here in Tennessee, you can find Schulte Productions as your wedding videographer through Wedding Wire or the Knot.
Love it. That's so cool. Yay. Well, so fun. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to chat. And it's so fun to get to meet you, Brandon, officially, and just to be able to celebrate with you guys in this new season. So thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Of course. It was so fun.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You can find all the links, full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. If you're interested in supporting the show, some great ways to do that are to share it with a friend, to rate and review wherever you're listening, and then also if you're interested in giving financially, you can check out our Patreon community, where you get bonus content each month and have a special part in helping make this podcast possible. You can access our Patreon community on the link at our website or by going to creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. Thank you all so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create. You were made to inspire. Continue living with purpose and making an impact. I'll see you next time, friends.